With dynamics, it's a very cool way to get very accurate movement mathematically correct. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, if I go to create polygon primitives, plane, and let's say if I had a ramp, I'm just going to angle this like this, and I'm going to put a ball above it. Okay, maybe a sphere. Now, if I were going to animate this sphere, what I might do is I might look at it from the side view, or I guess from the front view in this case. There we go. And I can see here and here. And I might keyframe the ball here, and then I'd keyframe it here, and then I'd have to kind of guess how it's going to bounce. Okay? I might go into the graph editor and make some adjustments and that type of thing. And then it gets a little bit trickier if I'm hand animating it, if I change the weight of the ball. Okay, because it's not going to maybe bounce as high, things like that. But the computer is smart enough that it can figure it out mathematically. So if I switch to the FX menu, and to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and select this plane, and under Fields and Solvers, I'm going to tell it to be a passive rigid body. Okay, and I'm going to select this ball, and I'm going to tell this to have gravity attached to it. So I just clicked on gravity. And over here, you can start to see, okay, there's a gravity field in our scene. And now this is a passive rigid body, and this is an active rigid body that has gravity attached to it. So if I hit play, I can see that the ball now comes in contact with the plane, and it's going to move very accurately. You can see all of the rotation. Everything is correct. Okay, so you could actually simulate a real kind of world scenario dynamically and see what actually happens. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of demo this idea further. I'm just going to go File, New Scene, and I'm going to go ahead and create some dominoes. So if I create a cube, I'm just going to kind of scale this up like this. And I'm just going to kind of have a row of dominoes. Remember as a kid playing with setting up dominoes, making sure I don't accidentally knock one over, right? It's a lot easier on the computer because I can just do Shift D as in duplicate, and then I'll move it forward a little bit, and then I'll just press Shift D again, and you can see that. There we go. Awesome. Now I want to make sure that those don't fall kind of to infinity down there, so I'm just going to create a plane. There we go. Excellent. And maybe to get this domino started, I'm just going to kind of rotate this one just like that, because that'll for sure fall. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm sure you guessed it, I'm going to select the plane, and I want the plane to be like solid. I want these to react to this, but when they react, I don't want the plane to like fall down. So what I could do is I'm just going to select the plane and tell this to be a passive rigid body. Then, instead of applying gravity to each one of these, what I could do is I could select all of them like this, and then I can go to gravity. Now I have gravity attached to all of those, and now if I rewind and hit play, hey, congratulations, we've got a simulation happening. And you can see the simulation is only going to play through until it gets to the end of the timeline. So I'm going to hit stop, rewind, and I'm going to give myself maybe 500 frames. So I'm going to type in 500 right here. Now if I rewind, notice that I rewind. I want the simulation to always start at the frame 1. Now if I hit play, I can see that, okay, great. It happens, and you can see that if it goes off the edge, it's just going to fall. Okay, that's really cool what happens there. So very, very cool. Now, I'm just going to adjust this slightly so we can kind of talk about some troubleshooting things that might happen. What happens if I do this? If I take this domino and if I have it go through the plane, okay, obviously that would be impossible to happen in real life. And let's see how dynamics kind of handles that if we made a mistake like that. So I'm going to rewind and hit play. Okay. Well, it did maybe what you expected or maybe what you didn't. It fell through the plane, right? But something else happened. Notice that I don't have anything selected. And when I press play, it automatically selects this and it automatically selected the floor. And the reason that it did that is because those are the objects that are kind of, it's questionable how accurate that is. Okay, so if it senses that there may be a potential mistake, it'll let the simulation happen. However, it's saying maybe look at those objects and see if there's anything that you can kind of do about that. Because if everything is quote unquote legal, then if I hit play, I can see that nothing highlights. Okay, indicating that it's pretty confident that the simulation is correct. Other things that if I look at it from the side, you'll notice that I left a little gap between the domino and the floor. Like if it's sitting right exactly on the floor, it could be, it could have trouble determining if it's going to be fall through or that kind of thing. So you got to be very careful when you're placing your geometry. So that's kind of a nice quick introduction to this idea of passive rigid bodies, which would be considered the floor. And then these would actually be considered active rigid bodies. And a way to remember that is that they're reacting, okay? And when we give something gravity or when we give it any field, it's automatically going to become a reactive body, or we could say an active body. And then anytime that it's passive, that's why the ground is not responding to gravity, because it's a passive rigid body. All right.